Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about this giant blizzard, giant winter storm. We have, we are on day, 4 or 5 in a row of making these videos, and that's not the point. The point is that we are still around only maybe halfway through this system. Again, it's a very slow moving system which aids in its heavy accumulations, but also the snowfall rates themselves are extremely impressive. I have a video loaded full of information for you guys. Thankfully, for folks that live across the northwest, southwest, the storm is mainly done for you guys. However, anywhere east of the Rockies, it's still I guess the worst is still ahead, if you will. So I do want to say right away, if you guys are new to this channel, we do use a regional kind of breakdown. So if you go on a scroll bar, you can see that it's divided into like the northwest, south central United States, or in the description box below you could click on the little numbers next to the region and it'll take you to that. So if you don't want to watch the whole video, which I don't blame you, it's going to be pretty long, just skip to your individual region. Okay, let's start off first off with, well, actually let me give you first a little brief overview because I just want to show you the scope of this thing before I kind of divide this by section. Again, here's kind of the overlay of the winter watches and warnings associated with it. Let me take that off so I have a cleaner view. Again, this is very impressive. Some of these rates approaching here, you can see right there that darker blue just across Red Lake Falls, or Ada, knowing the Midwest. It's Grand Forks, right? So these areas are going to be experiencing some very heavy snowfall rates, 1 to 2 inches of snow per hour. Let me show you some of the snowfall that has already occurred. Obviously, across the west, they were pretty substantial. The Wasatch, Alta, Utah, 31 inches of snow at 8,100 feet of elevation. That's pretty significant. And look, we have our first 18-inch report coming out of North to South Dakota. So I'm honestly surprised that there's already 18 inches there, as there could be easily another foot across even that same location. So again, 2 feet in some areas, and in some isolated pockets, there could be up to 3 feet of snow. Absolutely incredible. Before I go on, I just want to show everyone a webcam of Bismarck, North Dakota. This is what it looks like. This may look like a still frame, but if you look very closely, and honestly, I don't know if you'll be able to pick it up, because I can, because this is kind of, but by the time I screen record this and upload this to YouTube, it might be a bit fuzzier. But you can see a little light moving there, back there. It's a live footage camera, and yeah, it's a typical blizzard. I mean, it's almost whiteout conditions there. So let's start off by looking at the northwestern United States. Again, these first two sections, northwest and southwest, you guys don't have much activity going on. Obviously, further towards the east, across eastern Montana and eastern Wyoming, you guys still have a little bit of activity going on. That is already snowing. It is snowing across your areas. Notice Washington, Oregon, Idaho, these areas, you guys are mainly done with this. You're not going to be seeing any snowfall in addition from this system. There could be a little clipper that, if you recall, the GFS yesterday was showing. This will move in early Thursday, so late tomorrow, early Thursday. Nothing too significant, but a few inches, 3 to 5 inches is possible across elevated areas, maybe even additional snow. And notice this kind of brings itself down into Utah and Colorado, so that is definitely something that's noticeable. And do note that the system snow ends across Montana and Wyoming by the time we get, let's say late to mid Thursday afternoon. So again, you guys are kind of experiencing the end-ish of this thing, but still some significant snow is expected. You can see what the GFS shows, assuming a 10-to-1 ratio. It's realistically colder, so you could multiply these numbers that you see, 7, 6, 8 inches by 1.5, and you could get a more accurate estimate. And notice that little clipper, widespread snow across Idaho. There's a lot of cold air here behind this system, so a lot of that will be falling as snow for pretty much everyone here. There won't be any rain, so that is definitely something to note. And just to show you, that's cold air that is going to be in place following the system right there. You can see it's mainly a cool pattern, and that's why the snow will be pretty prevalent from that little clipper system, and it could accumulate a bit more than typically because of the fluffiness of it. And yeah, regarding any watches and advisories, again, there's that little clipper area that we could be looking for. You're right, widespread light snow. Again, they're mentioning as light. It's not going to be anything too significant. 2 to 3, 1 to 2, nothing too bad, but definitely something you have to watch for. Okay, let's take a look at the southwest now. This area is also mainly done with this system, and as far as I can see, even past this storm, it looks like if your guys' area it's gonna be calm. Aside from that clipper on Thursday, late Wednesday to early Thursday across northern Utah and into Colorado, you can see it's weakening as it moves down. So nothing really results of it by the time it reaches Colorado. A few still scattered showers will result from that, but going on in the future for the Southwest, you know, since there's nothing really to talk about in the short term, you guys won't see much activity. Notice the next time there's a mention of activity is by the 20th of December, and obviously the forecast can change, so I'll keep you guys updated. But it looks like a very nice pattern in terms of temperatures. It's gonna be on a chilly side, especially as you go towards the north. So let me show you. You can see, notice in northern Utah, Nevada, Colorado, definitely warmer or colder, slightly warmer towards the south, but predominantly a cooler pattern for the next period, warming up potentially into December. Into the midweek of next week. But notice, around that time, you could be seeing some very barbaric cold air across the central United States, and that could spill pretty far down into the Southwest. So that's something to note of. But yeah, definitely nothing too concerning for the Southwest. One thing I do want to show you for the folks that are watching from the Southwest or the West is just some of this snowpack that you guys have received. I mean, look at Oregon, look at Nevada, Utah, Idaho, very healthy snowpacks. Even Washington, Montana, around average, slightly above average. You can see Colorado is around average, slightly below as you go towards the south and east of the state. Wyoming, I'm assuming, especially those areas, will get caught up with that snow that's falling right now. So around, it's going to be, you know, slightly above average. Arizona even caught up with some of that snowfall. New Mexico's below though. So again, not the perfect, but definitely something that's promising, especially for this drought that we have across the southwest United States. I did want to show you, I don't know if I have it pulled up right now. It was I don't think I do, but basically it showed the three regions of the Sierra, the northern, central, and southern, and all of them had well over 150% of their current snowfall. That should be for this time of the year. It was almost double in some areas, so definitely a good start. But again, last year there was also a good start. We'll have to wait and see whether or not the pattern peters out. And for now, it does look quieter. Okay, let's move on to this northern, central United States, as this is where obviously we have the majority of the talking, at least for the next 2 days. And do note that where is this? National Weather Service. There, we have all these watches and warnings, right? The radar is already lit up, so it's already occurring. Minneapolis, right? A large city. I know I have a lot of viewers from Minnesota and kind of just the upper Midwest here. Depending on where you are, either rain, ice, or heavy snow. Notice Nebraska right now across North Platte. We have a very, very heavy snow band that is kind of stationary almost across portions, just seemingly east of the city at this point. But yeah, that will continue for at least a good few hours there. So even heavy snowfall rates approaching here, additional 4 to 5 inches is definitely possible. And of course we have a powerful cold front in terms of the rain occurring. So let's start off by looking at a higher precision model, because we have the ability to do so with this with the HRRR. So let's look at the next 20-ish hours with the HRRR model, and do note that right now, again, mainly rain that we're seeing across, we're going to say, Iowa, into Illinois, into Missouri. But as this thing spreads, notice across obviously the Dakotas, we have this raging blizzard, raging storm that will continue. So throughout this evening, obviously certain areas might fall in and out of the snow. You can see it's not going to be a 100% coverage of snow swath, but any area that is under those heavy showers, or especially right here near that low pressure itself, or just that heavy precipitation kind of swath, you're going to be experiencing near whiteout conditions. And notice that even cities like Minneapolis could transition over late night into some of that snow as this cold front kind of re-intensifies from some of these showers that could be erupting across Iowa. And in fact, if you look on the radar, we are seeing that right now, some storms firing up here, and that could provide some moisture to turn some snow across cities, across areas that haven't seen much thus far. So that is definitely one thing to watch for. However, the bigger piece that is more interesting in my opinion is watch this area. So again, just rain, nothing too significant, seemingly petered out, but by late tomorrow morning we see an intensification, we see a new resurgence of precipitation, and this model unfortunately is still processing. You can see it only takes us out to 21 hours, but what we start seeing is an incredible resurgence of moisture across very similar areas that are currently seeing rain. So again, obviously flooding is a concern. Notice across South Dakota, it's still raging, this blizzard, and in fact it's picking up in coverage across North Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Arrowhead of Minnesota, reaching the UP. But this is where the predominant, let's go back in a few hours. So this is a little bit older data, still relatively unchanged. look. So we see very heavy precipitation rates, prolific precipitation rates convert into snow across Wisconsin, obviously bring quite a bit of heavy rain across Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, but mainly a rain event. Could be a little bit of ice, especially across northern central Michigan, mainly a rain event though. And notice that while it's seemingly this thing's petered out, it's almost done, we have this new surge of moisture that comes in. And whether or not this affects, say, the Twin Cities, notice you guys are right on that southern cusp of this. It's going to be a very hard call to make, but notice that provides the bulk of the snow that northern Wisconsin and the UP is going to see. It's going to come from this thing. Very heavy snowfall rates from this, and notice that system continues circulating around, and at this point, the rain-snow line is pushing well into Michigan, Indiana, as this kind of storm sweeps in a lot of cold air behind it. In terms of the total accumulated precipitation, let's take a look at that first. Obviously, quite significant, especially where we have some lake enhancement. There could be some really, really impressive snowfall amounts up there. Towards the south as well, some pretty significant rain. And do note that in terms of total snowfall, obviously also very significant. This is on top of, the snow that has already fallen. And again, Minnesota, Minneapolis right there, you guys are right on the cusp of seeing that heavier, lighter snow. Further south, you're most likely just going to see those wraparound showers. Same with Iowa, same with southern Wisconsin. Again, some of that snow you could see getting as far south as Milwaukee. I'm not too sure it's going to, be as significant as the HRRR model is showing here. But the point is that basically as this precipitation is falling very heavily, that rain tomorrow with that second surge in the late afternoon, if it's cold or if it's falling heavily enough and the temperatures are marginal, like 36, 37, which they will be, the models are basically trying to show us that it's called dynamic cooling, when atmosphere cools from all the rain that's falling and eventually cools enough with the heaviness of that precip rate where it just starts snowing. And with such precipitation rates, you could really accumulate a few inches in a short amount of time. So that's definitely something to watch for. Another thing to watch for is just in general the brutal conditions. I'll continue in terms of cold air, very windy conditions, and look at some of these snowfall amounts. I think that some of the highest amounts will end up being here near the Arrowhead, the Arrowhead of Minnesota, but especially the southern tip of it, where that lake enhancement from that southerly wind off Lake Superior will be occurring. And I mean, goodness, we could be expecting some amounts into the 3-foot plus range there. So very, very, very impressive amounts potentially there. Another thing I want to note is for the north central United States, I am carefully watching, because I know I have a lot of viewers from the Twin Cities area. What I'm watching is the latest European model run that came out at 6 o'clock, because the European model has these little intermediate runs that go out to 90 hours between its two big runs during the noon and midnight hours of a normal day. And notice, so it shows that resurgence right into tomorrow. But look what the latest European model does. So look, Minneapolis is right there. Unlike the HRRR model, it shows Minnesota, Minneapolis getting in on that snowfall, and it takes us a little bit further south. So this could catch a few people off guard, especially if they're expecting their forecast shows very minimal snow, and this could in fact drop quite a few inches. So we'll have to see. It's still a little bit away, but it definitely could be something we're gonna again have to be on the lookout for. Again, the same thing with that situation across southern Wisconsin, because if you look right now, there aren't any advisories or watches for southern Wisconsin, but I would not really be surprised to see some significant, not significant, but some potential, decent amounts of snow across here. Notice they show rain then snow, rain snow mix, but if the HRRR model comes right, then we could be really looking at some rather significant accumulations here across southern Wisconsin and potentially into southern Minnesota. Regardless, that's the north central United States. Again, let me go forward with this in time just to show you that by the time all things are clear and done, even the wraparound showers, it's going to be almost Friday. Obviously, by then the snowfall accumulations won't be as significant as additional ones. But you could still see adding in at least a few inches, and that could stretch across northern Iowa and even Illinois with those wraparound showers. So that's the north central United States. I already showed you the European model, but let me just show you its new model, and again, it's showing some of that snow conversion across Wisconsin, Minnesota. Definitely an impressive system, and there will be a lot of cold air left behind in the wake of this system. Let's move on to the south central United States. As you could see earlier when I showed you the National Weather Service radar or the map, I don't know if you noticed that, but we have a whole area of tornado watches here. Obviously, today there's an enhanced issue. Tomorrow there's also severe weather threat a bit further towards the south of this area. So let's take a glance at that, as that is definitely something we are concerned about. Let's take a look at the HRRR model, as this takes us out to 25 hours, and that will, encompass probably much of the forecast we need. So again, right now we do have storms occurring. Much of them are not really severe. They are going to start to get severe as we get into the daytime or into the overnight hours tonight. And notice there are going to be obviously hail, rain, but mainly the biggest threat is the tornadoes. That is very concerning. And notice that as these storms push through eastward, they kind of slow down, start dragging their feet, and you can see that by Wednesday, tomorrow at 11 a.m. They've changed a little bit of their position, but it's definitely not as fast moving up front. And as this glides through 3, 4, 5, 6, like 7 o'clock yesterday or tomorrow, these storms continue. And yeah, individually tracking when the certain cities will be in and out. Cities like Tupelo, Mississippi, getting in on overnight tonight, and probably completely exiting the thunderstorm threat by 6 p.m. tomorrow. You won't be consistently seeing thunderstorms during that time, or even rainfall. But, in the periods that it does rain, it will be raining very heavily, and especially where that cold front stalls out, there could be a concerning little swath of 6, 7, 8, maybe even 10, 11 inches. I know that's a giant range, but within these type of events where the rain is torrential and it slows down like that, and the model, like the HRRR, is hinting at that, we could be looking at those very significant rainfall amounts. That's something, hopefully, you guys, don't get caught off guard by, because, even if you're ready for it, it could come out of nowhere, seemingly a flash flood threat. So something to note. Notice enhanced risk again is for today across a good portion of northern Louisiana, extreme eastern Texas, and extreme western Mississippi. There, tornado threat relatively high, uncomfortably high, as I like to say. The wind threat not too bad, and the hail threat really not bad at all. So again, mainly the tornadoes are driver of tonight. Tomorrow's severe weather event is further towards the south and east. Or just west or east and south, I guess, yeah. Mississippi, Alabama, extreme eastern the panhandle of Florida, western, I should say, sorry, and then extreme eastern, not extreme, a good chunk of eastern Louisiana. Again, the tornado threat is uncomfortably high. The wind threat is much higher tomorrow than it is today, and then the hail threat is also pretty darn low like today. So that's the biggest threat against cities like New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Mobile. You guys are going to be stuck in that strong wind threat tomorrow, and obviously the tornado threat. Whether or not it gets upgraded to a moderate or whatnot, it's not really our concern, because the point is that even if it does, that's just a Storm Prediction Center doing its thing. In reality, the storms are going to do what they're going to want to do, and looking at these forecasts, it's not looking too good with what they want to do. They could be, again, pretty darn strong. If you go back to the National Weather Service, you can see tonight they are warning for those tornado potentials. This is, I clicked on the Shreveport, Louisiana. Obviously, chances of rain are going to be very significant, and obviously for the heavy rain that will be occurring, there is a lot of flash flood watches and whatnot. So I take a look at Jackson, Mississippi. Let's take a glance at that. They have severe thunderstorms, 1 to 2 inches tonight, 1 to 2 inches tomorrow. You get it. It's going to be a very heavy rain event. Aside from the severe thunderstorm threat that will be obviously occurring. So let's move on now towards the northeastern United States, as that is our next main area of concern. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping around here trying to find my place here. So let's click on the northeastern United States and show you what's going to be going on here. Let me just start off with the GFS, because your event is still a little bit away. So again, notice that we have a lot of cold air left in the wake from the snow that fell, and just from a different system that you can see is kind of decaying back onto the northeast with its cold air. And that's going to result in some warm air overriding cold air. Some ice is going to start off, some sleet across your central Pennsylvania, your State College, into southern New York, eventually converts into snow. Do note, so cities like Toronto will also be picking up, at least initially, a little bit of snow before transitioning to some more rain. Then we see this low pressure intensifying, and it does take more of a inland track. The GFS is still the one that shows the most furthest out low pressure, so I don't think that there will be really any snow across the coastal areas. It's just not likely. But further inland, as this thing intensifies, it pumps in more moisture. Obviously, southeastern Canada as well, picking up some decent snowfall out of this. And you can see that's a Canadian or GFS model interpretation. I went through it pretty quickly because I don't think this model has the best scenario handle. I think the European basically does a better job of showing this, which I'll show you in just a second. But notice the snowfall amounts will still be pretty significant regardless of which model you look at. It's just the placement of this is kind of different. So let me zoom in onto the northeastern United States here with the European model and show you this. So again, tomorrow it's mainly still a pretty dry day for you guys, but by Thursday, late Wednesday, Thursday, we have the ice first develop. rain for the coastal areas, but again, the European, just like the GFS, doesn't show snow for the coastal cities. In fact, it shows the rain snow line even a bit further inland, but it does show that intensification of that low pressure, some heavy rain obviously on the southern side, and some significant snowfall across upstate New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, southeastern Canada. So if you guys are traveling between cities here across southeastern Canada, on Friday it will be a pretty miserable day, mainly snow, and there could be quite a bit of it. The European showing a little bit more of that than the GFS, and this sticks around stubbornly, potentially even into Saturday, especially across Quebec, Maine, and further east on Canada. Toronto, you guys should be fine. Montreal by Saturday should be mainly good by that point, though there will be a lot of cold air and lake effect, so any snow slush that's on the ground will be freezing up or potentially getting added to, especially if you live along those lake belts. So the total snowfall, according to the European model, again, avoiding the coastal areas, will be mainly affecting will be mainly affecting the the inland locations, but it could be doing that in a pretty substantial manner. Notice Binghamton, right? So your office around a foot potentially, according to the European. Further north, even higher amounts. And again, up here, some of these are probably under displayed because there will be colder air, and this assumes a 10-to-1 ratio, which some of this here will be falling even under a 10-to-1 ratio. So some of this, especially here, it's probably overdone, probably realistically closer to 8 inches with the same amount of precip that the European forecast, assuming it's right. It's just that it'll be a heavier, sloppier snow. Up here it'll be fluffier because it's colder, so don't take these to heart. But obviously, if you live across Maine and you see a foot of snow, you're probably going to see significant snow. Maybe not the precise number it shows there of 24 inches. I would not be surprised, though, to see some amounts approach that limit or amounts across certain areas here, across the northeast and maybe southeastern Canada. Again, for the coastal areas, this is mainly a rain event, so in terms of total QPF, right, quantitative precipitation forecast for you guys, it's going to be, again, pretty significant, especially as this thing slows down and starts intensifying across kind of the mid-Atlantic here. Some amounts, 2-3 inches of rain is definitely a possibility. Let's look at the last region we have to talk about, and that's the southeast. So notice the southeast right now doesn't have much watches. Towards the north and west region of the southeast, you do, across Alabama, Mississippi, those flood watches. There will be a lot of rain with this event here. Mainly rain. The severe weather threat is really not as significant. Notice that the main things they're warning about is localized flash flooding, rising river levels, and of course any danger that comes with a regular thunderstorm. So that's definitely going to be something we're going to have to watch for. Notice that the HRRR model, which takes us out to 30 hours, which won't be enough to encompass the whole event, but at least a part of it. Let's track this out for you. So again, most of the area is still dry for now, but you could see that across Tennessee, Kentucky, the western areas of those states will start getting in on this within the next few hours. Mississippi, Alabama, into western Tennessee now, Kentucky by tomorrow early in the morning, Georgia, Alabama. You can see now this is where it slows down. So, cities like Alabama could get several rounds of, or states like Alabama will get several rounds of these storms. And eventually these storms will weaken in terms of severity, and it will just become a heavy rain event as this pushes into the Carolinas, into Georgia, into the Panhandle. Florida is where we could still see some severe weather as we get into the day on Thursday, so that's something I'm definitely concerned about. But further north, you could see mainly heavy rain events across Virginia, West Virginia, and whatnot. Maybe across the higher elevations, some icing occurring, which you can see the HRRR model shows. So through Thursday, 4 o'clock in the morning, you can see in terms of total accumulated rainfall, it's going to be, again, pretty significant. The HRRR model showing isolated amounts 6, 7, 8 inches. I would not be surprised to see even more than that. But by the time all things are said and done, going to a global model now, you can see that the amounts are going to spread into the Carolinas, the heavier amounts. Maybe not as heavy. I think that, again, the heaviest will be across Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama area. But, yeah, you can see the GFS not showing localized as much as the HRRR model, but it's still showing quite a bit, and that's because it's a global model, so it's obviously not as accurate with regards to the localized thunderstorm events. And, again, as I go to the Storm Prediction Center, I can show you that on Wednesday, again, you can see it's pretty confined to southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, not really even into Georgia. There's a slight risk, obviously. But, again, then on Thursday, the main threat is going to be across maybe the coastal areas of the Carolinas. But, again, that's marginal. And the biggest concern is just going to be central Florida and extreme southeastern Georgia and southern South Carolina. Other than that storm kind of just, again, mainly a nasty cold front sweeping through the area. And it will be a lot chillier following this system. I do want to give you guys now a little brief overview into the long range. I know that some of you guys may be already sick with this system. Honestly, I'm starting to get a little bit bored of it. It's been for many, many days we've been talking about the same guy, and we have many more days to talk about him. But by the time he's gone, the pattern's going to be different. So at least that's going to be kind of exciting. Notice the cold air is going to reach well into the southern United States. I mean, not freezing, but definitely chilly. And what we do start seeing with that, excess cold air pretty far to the south, any moisture that is occurring at any area, unless it's really, really far south, will have a potential for being kind of a snow system-ish. So yesterday I showed you that big storm system around that Christmas time frame. The models continue showing that, each one a little bit differently. Again, the agreement is very minimal, but it's there enough for us to assume that there will be some storm, a pretty significant one most likely, as significant as the one we're seeing right now probably, but just maybe, again, how, what, where, we'll have to see. But notice the snow is much further south into Arkansas, maybe northern Texas. You can see this is the GFS interpretation of it into the northeast. And what's also really interesting to note is that there could be some barbaric cold air. Look at some of these anomalies. That is literally almost reaching off the charts in terms of the cold air that could be coming in across December. So just to show you how cold some of these areas will be, yeah, I mean, it could be cold, like the single digits across Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi. I mean, this is going to be one of the colder Christmases ever recorded. Notice Northern Plains. I mean, these temperatures are ridiculous. This is something more you'd see in the peak of winter. Even then, it would have to be a colder one. Late January is usually when it's the coldest for at least the northern, kind of north-central United States. So, yeah, definitely going to be an interesting one. And GFS is not by itself showing this. And if you go back to its older model runs, the GFS is obviously showing that cold air, but you can see the storm system it showed at today at noon. It was slightly different already, different track, right? Still showed that incredible cold air behind it. Today at 6 o'clock in the morning, it showed an even different version of the storm system. You could see one that was not maybe as strong, but more further towards the south. Still a very, very significant cold mass of air behind it. That's been consistent with that. If you take a look at the European model, so let's zoom out of the regional view and take a look at the national view. It also shows a system around that time frame. Again, in what shape, what form is still kind of being debated by the models, if you will. But you can see the European starts showing a system, potentially a very significant one. Different than the GFS one, but a significant one nonetheless. And in terms of the temperature anomaly, if we go back and show you the European on this website, which again it's the same model just on a different website, and you can see that the temperature anomaly behind that, whatever will be occurring, is also extreme. And again, look at that contrast. So the European GFS, they're all agreeing on that, so it's definitely looking interesting to say the least. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya. Bye.